Welcome to the LBA Monthly Roundtable. We bring distinguished guests each month, and we are so fortunate this month to have Christian Angermayer, and Christian and Nir will discuss the connection between healthy aging, drug development, and psychedelics. Please take it away, Nir.
Well, thank you very much. This is how it's going to work. We want advice from you for all the Longevity Biotech Association members. We want to hear your experience. We want to hear what you have to say to us. We want to ask you maybe a question, but let's start from who you are. And as we now do a lot, I asked ChatGPT to tell me who you are. In fact, I asked him to write a poem about you, right? I'm not going to read all the poem, just a little bit of that. I can send you the rest.
Yeah, please.
But this is what it says, and at the end, I'm going to ask you, what are we missing? Okay, so Christian Angermayer, a man of great renown, a leader in the world of finance around town. His vision and ambition have taken him far, from humble beginning to a life of a star. He's built a career on his knowledge and skill, from investment to venture capital. He made a kill. His success has been hard-earned and well-deserved. His name is now known in the business world. And I'm skipping something at the end. Actually, they come because I think it takes them time to actually get the data. So at the end, they said, Christian Angermayer, a man of great renown, a leader in the world of finance renown. His investments in life bioscience, fintech, AI, psychedelic, and cryptocurrency have made him a leader in the industry, a role model for many. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff at the end. Tell me, what do we need to know more about you than this poem said?
First of all, it's very interesting. I'm still always fascinated about the already existing AI capabilities. So it's very fascinating. No, I think what it said, like, which I'm very proud of, which is always sometimes sort of gives enough, enough meat for a good discussion, is like, I'm really interested in many things, and I'm very happy that I was able to structure my life in a way to dabble in all of them, from biotech to let's say tech overall, a lot of fintech and crypto, a lot of other stuff, like sort of, yeah. So I'm interested in many things, and at the end I invest in and build companies which really excite me. So that's maybe the driving. So I want to be excited, and I'm very easily excitable. Yeah. But like I just want to do interesting things, and longevity is practically, I would say, it's like the consequence of this, because if you are excited about life, whatever, by the way, that always doesn't, for me, it's like building companies or creating things. It's actually beyond that, because I love to also produce movies, which are inherently normally loss-making. Like, the movie business is not a good business to be in. So I'm not doing it for the money, but it's like, I love that creation process, either a company or a drug or a movie or whatever. But like, sort of, if you're excited about life, then, and if you're happy, it's psychedelic side, then you want that to go on for at least as long as you want. I always say, like, I really think, coming back to what we have pre-recording, like the religious discussions, I'm very spiritual. So I do believe we have an eternal soul. So I also do believe that somewhere we're going to have enough. Yeah. So, but I don't know when this is. And I think it's like the ultimate sort of libertarian move to have everybody decide that themselves. And then some might say, look, I really have enough of 80. Yeah. And some might say, I want to go on till 500, but I think we should be able to go on as long as we please. I deeply believe that somewhere we're gonna, unless we start changing our brain, really sort of, it's the whole AI discussion as well, of what is human and where suddenly, like, can we actually predict how a non-human, if it ever exists, intelligence would act? Like, sort of, so all my predictions are always like based on that we stay human from how we think, and if we stay human, we're gonna be bored somewhere. Might be very late for some people, but like, and then I think we wanna die in a good way. I think dying should then be like the beginning, like a festive event, and then you see what's next, or if there's something next. I'm very, very, very sure about that, but like, then you want to see what it is exactly.
Well, that was so insightful, because the poem didn't have any on aging and longevity, really. So, but when I left ChatGPT and looked at the web, I was looking for your age. I found your weight, by the way. I find your height. I found lots of things, but not your age. So I have a question for you. Do you have a number and it's unlisted? Or do you think that biological age and chronological
my
age
age is, I think I thought I should be. It's definitely not a secret. I'm 44 and I'm actually turning 45 next week.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know my weight is public because it's fluctuating. I'm a proud user of Ozempic, which is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So terrific. So I've no more secrets that I need to reveal. So
by the way, I think there are not many secrets, because one thing I'm sort of known for is I think I don't have a filter, because I don't think you get what you. I always say what you see is what you get. Sort of I'm not really a man of secrets.
Okay, good. So let's talk about your investment in Apeiron, and maybe, I mean, it's a long story, but if you could pick 2 or 3 challenges that will be generic to all of us when you set up a company, but when you set the vision and the mission and you build it, what do you think is very important for people who are starting longevity biotech to take away from that?
Yeah, so Apeiron is my family office, so that's my whole day. But let's take Cambrian for instance, because James is in the call. As a company, I really not an Apeiron is not a company, but Apeiron is sort of the holding, what is there's so many challenges, especially in biotech. At the end, it's always funding. I think even many biotech CEOs and founders, at least first-time founders, underestimate how, not in a bad way, it's just an industry inherent thing, but how cumbersome it can be that over years and years, the more successful you get, the more money you need to raise, because biotech is drug development is this sort of consuming monster, which success creates a bigger capital need. And I think that is and then obviously you need to plan that. We had this phase from 2012 to 2021 where there were ups and downs, but if you're honest, it was a pretty good, consistent sort of positive phase for fundraising, starting a company, going public, whatever. Again, the ups and downs of that time now feel like a joyride. So, and I was always telling, and even I got a little bit sloppy, because when you forget, it's also remarkable how quickly humans forget. But at least I think more than others, we were telling our portfolio companies, again, when I met James, I was this cannot go on like that forever. There will be more severe downturns, and they're gonna go by as well. They're gonna be also upturns, right? But you need to raise enough money quickly when people are willing to give it to you, because there might be longer periods of time where you can't raise money. I think that sounds simple, but it's one of the most fundamental advices in generally for every founder. Again, by the way, and also a lot of founders think so highly of them, but not wrongly, but they're so passionate about what they're doing that they cannot imagine that there is a time where people are not interested in them. So what I tell them, look, you should, so this means that they normally say, oh, I raise money when I need it. And I was no. You should raise money when people want to give it to you. And that's a huge difference sometimes. So again, for a long time, I sounded like a broken record, but that is the biggest advice, is raise money when people want to give it to you, raise more than they want to give it to you, because there could be longer phases, which we're in now. But by the way, I think it's going to go away. And then we live in an inherently also volatile world. So and it's especially true for biotech because of this massive need of capital.
It's actually interesting, the big rocket that was going to take man to moon just exploded, 3 minutes after takeoff. And NASA and Elon Musk and everybody said, oh, no, that's great. We didn't really expect it. We'll lose several more missiles before we get to the moon. It kind of told me, we're going to have challenges, but let's just get money into it.
failure is part of the project. I think we shouldn't over glorify failure. I think sometimes you're like, oh, failure is great. No, failure is not. It sucks. Yeah. But like failure is part of the process, and you should take the right lessons, and you should have enough capital to buffer for that failure and to be able to go on and not have to fundraise right after failure.
So how do you find a new company to get involved in? I mean, which is the input? Because you're not a scientist, right? So you need to know the science, you need to get excited. How is the process going in your head?
So two things. So we do two things at Apeiron. So very rarely, but these are then the more bigger sort of things. We really start companies ourselves with partners, like James and I started Cambrian, but like where we sort of literally the co-founder. And one other sort of famous but more known company is Apeiron, which is doing psychedelics and Compass. So, and then we have a sort of more normal investment arm where we invest in already existing companies from early stage to late stage. So we both, once in a while, when we have an original idea, we're a founder, and sort of normally, our day job, we're investors. In both, like I would say, the founder ideas are even more rare because I don't want to do me too things. I really want to do companies as a founder, which are very novel and sort of category defining, like Apeiron, including Compass, sort of brought back the ideas of psychedelics for medical use that you can't force. So I believe like you go through the world like with, I always say it sounds a little bit lofty, but it's actually what I really believe, like with an open heart and an open mind, and then sort of sometimes ideas come to you. And I think people have more ideas than they think. They just not trained to really say, oh, wow, that is an idea. And I'm sort of, so like my psychedelic idea came because I did a psychedelic trip, and many people before me have done psychedelic trips, and had maybe the same conclusion that it's pretty awesome, but I was then, okay, but why is this not available anymore? And and then everybody said, don't touch it, don't go there, like enjoy it, but don't, and I was like, why not? Like, sort of like, and I saw it rather like, by the way, again, because it's really like that, it was like a very spiritual, like I rather saw it as a sign. Like I always looking out for like what is sort of presented to me as an opportunity, because I believe life is inherently good. So all the things which happen to you are good in one way or the other. You just need to find the good in it. And then on the more pragmatic side, on the deal flow side in a venture business, we very much trust partners. So practically we get like literally 100 unsolicited things on LinkedIn, for example, like, and I can't, neither can I read it, but even if I could, or if somebody would read it, I don't think you can cut through the bullshit quickly enough to find that maybe one diamond in the rough, I say. So I rather have, so practically our filter is in all the venture funds that we need to get presented the deal by somebody we trust already, and we sort of know that person has a reason to show it to us, and sort of has thought it through, can vouch, so to say, for the people, for the idea. Can be a banker, can be a fellow investor, can be a former or current portfolio CEO, but some inroad where I'm like, okay, that person is credible, and this is why I should look at this deal.
Terrific. So you started giving the psychedelic as an example, but before we go more into that, you're one of the, it seems you're one of the greatest believer in the hallmarks of aging, and you've really invested in that. How did that happen? How did you said psychedelic, you had experience. How did the hallmarks of aging become such a passion of yours?
Well, first of all, aging really sucks. I really mean it. Like, I think there is nothing good in it. I want to get the wisdom. I want to get all the knowledge, but I want to look like when I was 20, like it was better than now. Like, and like, I really like, I maybe I'm the only person who dares to say it. But like sort of, I primarily was thinking about aging for myself. And I always thought I was 19 when I started my first biotech company. I was the junior partner with two professors, but it was in genetics. And actually back then I thought, well, now David Sinclair is always using it as a very simple example. Like I was always thinking, if you look at the DNA, because the company we started is now called Alnylam. So my two professors were the key guys in inventing RNAi technology or commercializing it. So it was very sort of focused on DNA, RNA, whatever. And I was like, that thing is the same from the day I'm born till the day I die. So my construction plan doesn't change, but sort of the visible, though, expression of it is changing. So I was always thinking there is something you can do. Yeah. And then it's actually a good question. I met Manuel Serrano. That was then sort of where it became a little bit more. And I met Manuel Serrano by another colleague, who I had financed because another friend had it. It's really like that, like sort of a dear colleague of mine had introduced me to the founder of Rejuveron, Matthias Steger, who was very into the stem cell world. So I got very excited about that. Matthias said you should look at what Manuel is doing because that's part of aging, and this is how it all came together.
That's really interesting. So now that you're again before going to psychedelic, what do you think are the major challenges we have in developing, longevity drugs? Where do you see as our bottlenecks now?
Well, it's really the one which we all together, I think, working on is the whole, I think, seeing aging or having it classified as a disease. So not always having these workarounds like, oh, we have a drug and this is practically working for this, but it could also potentially off-label be used for that. Like sort of, I would really, if we could push FDA and other agencies, and by the way, I think especially outside the US, great stuff is happening. So I'm a very big fan of the Middle East, where some of the rulers have realized that they are aging. So it's the same thought process, but they have realized if you have unlimited resources and the political will, you can change a lot. So, and then normally, like I also believe in it takes a while sometimes, but like countries, there's a healthy competition between countries. So if we get some countries to move, ultimately the US will move, and the US is moving, by the way. I'm not so, but this whole thing of like recognizing aging and everything related to it and ultimately dying as a problem and not as a God-given thing, I think is very, very important.
So Christian, I'm pushing through American Federation of Aging Research, the STAIN project, where we already talked with the FDA, and the FDA has already said, if you do this study, this will be okay. It's not that they say aging is a disease necessarily, but they said, well, if you can prevent age-related disease, we're fine with it. And it's funny because we have only a third of the money from the Middle East, from evolution, and it's very hard for us to get the rest of the money, but we have the blueprint that we think will make this big change. I see Ellen Schuldiner is on the phone. Ellen Schuldiner is a new member of us. It's the first pharmaceutical. Ellen Schuldiner is the vice president of Regeneron, who's committed to aging. But all those pharmaceuticals are looking for things to happen so that they can drop off the fence and start, doing phase 3 studies.
Let's talk offline because I thought you were fully financed. So it's
No, it's been a sticking point. There was COVID, and then there were people who were going to fund and didn't fund. We're ready to move, and we cannot, because unless we recruit the patient for, we cannot stop the study in the middle when we tell people.
Yeah, totally. No. So let's talk that offline, but like I do agree, like you need one of these landmark studies, you need acceptance of biomarkers so that we sort of, again, I think the two big changes, accepting aging as disease itself, and then also, but that's a general, it has nothing even to do with aging. Hopefully the West is changing into more, we can prevent things before they get really bad or before they actually happen at all, and not just always giving a drug once the problem has arisen.
So again, I'm holding on the psychedelic. We're getting there in a second. But
you can talk about whatever you want.
What do you have? No, I want to talk about what you want. Okay, but what do you think about longevity biohackers versus the clinical trials? How do you see biohackers making progress that's relevant to all of us?
Well, so first of all, I think it's great because I admire adventurism. So my favorite discussions are, and I know it's a little bit like you should say it, but like if somebody is so confident of whatever they have invented or thing, and they sit in front of me and say, look, I'm doing it already. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, because like, I'm very libertarian, like everybody can do whatever they want to themselves. Like if they want to take a certain drug and try it out, then I'm all for it. Like sort of, I think there was and is valuable learnings coming out of sort of that biohacking community who just try out things. Yeah. But then at the same time, so I don't think it's any competition. You need clinical trials. Yeah. Because that's the way you, of course, first of all, prove things really like and not N of one. Yeah. And you sort of, then they have a legal reason, but they do also have a scientific reason, because we all know, yeah, N of one is not like when you have 100 people, there are, so there is a scientific reason why. So I'm very excited about any N of one, yeah, where somebody tells me it worked for me, yeah. So and then ideally we should transform that into clinical trials, because that's how you really prove it scientifically, yeah. Yeah, and then we should not forget, and by the way, that is what was my biggest learning, and what always was my assumption, and other people had different opinions in psychedelics. We do underestimate how few, I think is the English term, how small the amount of people worldwide is who think like us in terms of longevity or biohacking, or I meet a lot of people who take psychedelics, yeah, but it's a tiny sort of part of the world population, yeah. So who is really that adventurous to do things early and a little bit off the beaten path? 99 point something% of the world population, rightly, wrongly, or you can say this is the wrong attitude, but they want things to be served by their doctor next door in a proven way within the system, and by the way, paid for it as well, because like again, yeah, a lot of people think, oh, I can get everything because like I can pay for it myself. But it's again, that's a minority of people who can think that way. And this is what I always tell my biohacker friends, that because they're like, oh, why can't everybody do it like us? And it was like, people, even if they were allowed to, even if it would be more common, they wouldn't do it, because like 99% of people are not biohackers. 99% of the people are not psychonauts. They want to have it in the medical system. And for that, you need clinical trials. Did clinical trials become too cumbersome over the last 20, 30 years? I think society in generally, it's not just about clinical trials, we lost a little bit the balance between progress and risk sort of protection. It's obviously important to make things safe. By the way, drugs like rockets, like whatever, but like I think society went a little bit too much into the risk-averse camp, yeah? So I think what would be warranted, yeah, would be, but it's a general, I don't think with aging, like a general, like let's rethink a little bit like the sort of framework for clinical trials, because I do believe they became too cumbersome. And I think what society, and I'm very involved and passionate about politics, like what society and our media-driven society, let's say what our media-driven society is not able to, they very much focused on primary effects, like have one drug which helps a lot of people, but would have one bad negative side effect. Yeah, it's all about the headlines, but they're not able to grasp, okay, but it does help 1 million people per year. So every year, and if it's a life-saving drug, this particular drug is not coming to market, 1 million people are dying. So practically secondary and tertiary, it was the same in COVID. We all were looking at the sort of primary effect. Yeah, people were dying of COVID, but we had as a media-driven society problems grasping, okay, but what we do to counterfight COVID will have a secondary and a tertiary effect, yeah, which can be maybe equally bad. Yeah, and it seems to be hard for society and hence for politicians and hence for agencies to balance that. They very much focus on the sort of primary sort of effect, yeah, which is, okay, let's reduce any risk, But I would say, look, the way drug development has become cumbersome, I think it takes too long till valuable stuff is coming to market. And in the time it's not at market, people die. Yeah, so we have sort of opportunity costs, which are human lives, which we're not counting.
Right. That's a really good point. So, okay, so we know that ways to fight aging is exercise, diet, sleep, social connectivity. Put psychedelic in and tell us, what do we need to know?
Well, you need to be happy. That's the very basic. First of all, there are two things. I think there is no reason to live forever or very long if you're not happy. Yeah. So that is one thing. And then happiness, though, as we know, has a direct, real effect on our physical condition, or the absence of happiness. And by the way, I even count loneliness in this whole mental health thing. So is very detrimental for humans. So I think that is one big part of psychedelics, is like, A, it's the basis that we want to become older and older because we're happy. B, there is this direct link, but then maybe the bigger part is like we look a lot at physical appearance and sort of physical health, but it's all, we have to at the same time very much look at brain health as well. So, and then you have sort of the neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever. But I think what my belief is, I think we have some, let's call it issues or diseases in society or as humans already, which we either not seeing at the moment as a treatable disease, but it will be. And loneliness is so we have a name for it. We know, or we all know what loneliness is, but I believe loneliness is a disease. Like, it's a treatable condition. Short version, we can elaborate more about, take people in an old people's home, they would have the time, they would have the space, but a lot of them really can't go out of themselves anymore. Sometimes loneliness is because they really, like, I don't know, they live far apart from whatever. Like, a lot of people, you wonder, like, why can't they not make new friends if you lost the old ones? And there seems to be, the older we get, we don't seem to be able anymore, but we accept it as a fact. But like, I've seen it give old people psychedelics, and suddenly they become literally young again, especially in that social point of view. They are outgoing, they make new friends. And by the way, that's one of my big passions. I think we should, psychedelics, especially loneliness, is I think the first one I think we can put into that treatable category, and it would change the lives of old people in a tremendous way. Like, I think sort of old people's home should be like summer camps. They should have time, they should talk about their lives, about what's next, like they should play whatever they want to do, but they should do something together. And I think, but even if they have the opportunity, something seems to prevent them often. But then but loneliness, at least we have a word for it. But then I think there are many issues we don't even have a word for it, but will become important that we deal with them. I give you an example, and I know somebody found the word now for that, like the whole ability, so I'm transcribing it, the whole ability to deal with change and to be constantly able to learn new things. What I mean is, like, already now, by the way, leave longevity aside, jobs, because of AI, because of many things, will get redundant every some years. So there is no way that somebody who's 30 now is learning one job and is doing that job till the end of their professional life. No way. And then add longevity and add 10 or 20, not 100 years, add 10 or 20. No way. So now you can say, is a 60-year-old, 50-year-old, let's take a bus driver, and in 10 years there won't be bus drivers anymore, is a 50, 60-year-old bus driver, is he willing to learn something new? I'm very optimistic. I think people want to be part of society. They want to have a job. So is he willing? Check. Is he intellectually able? I'm actually sure we're going to find a society jobs for everybody. But there is, I think, a third element we don't even have a name for, beyond the willingness and beyond the intellectual capacity. Are you, like, able in terms of openness to go to school again when you're 50 without thinking this is completely weird and bizarre, like just doing it? Like, and there, I think psychedelics with that, again, that is sort of the under-researched and at least under-talked about, because everybody talks about depression and all the ailments we defined already. But like, what psychedelics in a wonderful way do, they give you back that openness for three things. The most important is the openness for yourself. You start loving yourself and you start exploring yourself. And some people realize that they are much more complex being and soul than they have ever seen or ever comprehended. Then they give you back this interest and curiosity for the outside world, and especially for fellow human beings. And I think that sort of, again, I don't have a word for it, but like that sort of effect of psychedelics can be invaluable in a world which is constantly changing, and where we constantly need to adapt, and maybe for a hopefully longer time than we do now.
So you know, my friends at my seventh decades are really busy with how do we use our wisdom? How, you know, we have a lot of wisdom. How can we use it? And there's a lot of programs out there. I don't want to talk about it, but I really what, you know, so I'm thinking, you said, you know, you target elderly. Okay, so give me a clinical trial and outcomes that will make psychedelic a treatment. You know, it has to be safe. You have to show subjective things, maybe happiness, you know, scales of happiness, but also you want to show some physical thing or depression scale and walking ability, you know, some other things. Did you think, where are you moving with that to make it really something useful and accepted?
Yeah, no, it's okay. This is what we do. Like in sort of, we focus just at the beginning, and as I said, depression, because there is a scale, you can measure it. The trials are sort of, CNS is not easy, but like at least for the sort of standard mental health issues, depression, anxiety, addiction, we know how to measure it. We know how to design trials. So this is why our decision as a company, yeah, it's also so important. By the way, sometimes I'm talking, it's more like a, okay, what do I want to see the world to go? And then if you run a company, you have to sort of go step by step. And so the step-by-step decision was like kind of the low-hanging fruits for psychedelics are the acknowledged issues, depression, anxiety, addiction, whatsoever, which is what we're doing now with Apeiron and Compass. And there, the data is there. Like, there, by the way, so far, knock on wood, practically very little in the right setting. By the way, I always have to say that, who doesn't know it, like, I want to make psychedelics medically available again, not like legal in terms of sold everywhere. It's like medically together with a therapist. I deeply, deeply believe psychedelic drugs have to be taken with a therapist together in the presence of a therapist. But once we're there, so once we have certain psychedelics like psilocybin approved for depression and so on, I actually want to do more studies, and I'm preparing actually one with a friend of mine who's the leading math professor in the world for creativity, and creativity in math is measurable. And see, okay, what is if we give people of all age, psychedelics, will they be more creative?
I want to open it to everybody else, so everybody can turn their face on, and we'll do it. But I just want to ask you about safety, because isn't it possible that elderly on psychedelics will all of a sudden run and fall and, you know, get into, you know, what are the safety issue that you see here? Because that has to be checked.
Yeah, but safety, again, by the way, psychedelics is a category, so it's a little bit like how you say, not the English word, but like we would need to go in any single. They are a little bit different, all of the substances. But let's focus maybe for the sake now on psilocybin, which is sort of the most common psychedelic. It's the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. Sort of the safety. By the way, we know that the safety, even long-term studies, because a lot of people did it in the 60s. We followed up with a lot of people, like sort of, again, given you do it in the right, how the psychonauts would say, setting. So with a therapist, like, you exclude certain things, both that you're not on other drugs, like you, by the way, like with any other medical drug, like you need somebody who knows what you're taking, what is your condition, whatever. But if you have that, they are very, very safe. There was no severe downside. I mean, there's this famous, which is always my favorite chart to show. I don't have it ready now, but like the David Nutt, a very famous British neuroscientist, he wrote this book about the risk of drugs. I mean, he was more like in the recreational world, but like where sort of he did sort of this risk assessment, and for the first time, actually, he's like 10 years old now, defined what is risk actually. I mean, obviously we think about risk as, can somebody die? Can somebody have a bad, I don't know, physical reaction? But like there is also like, can people become dependent? Can people become a criminal? And if you look at can people harm others? By the way, one of the most important underestimated things of recreational drugs is the harm to others. And then the kind of shocking outcome was that the number one dangerous drug in the world, and one most destructive drug in the world, is alcohol. closely followed by heroin. Yeah. And then on the very right side of the chart, with practically zero risk, you see mushrooms.
Right, right. So, James, I want to ask you, because you might have a little bit idea of what I missed in my question. Maybe there's something that is really important to ask Christian.
Or let me say something if James goes on the video, because you asked me like, how do I meet people? Because it's a great story, which is practically embodying everything I believe in. So we were connected by a dear friend, who practically didn't really know. He was like, oh, you should talk to James because he's interested in aging, you're interested in aging. It's going to be a great discussion. And I met James in Soho House in New York. And like literally after 10 minutes, I was like, listen, and I'm saying that not because he's here, because it's really like what he deserves. Like he's one of the most charismatic, cool guys. And he has the knowledge, but he also has the vision, so good balance. And after 10 minutes, and he didn't even want to start a company, by the way. He wanted to start a fund. And after 10 minutes, I was like, James, you and I, we have to start a company together because you're an utterly cool guy.
Same experience here.
And then we talked another 2 hours. And then I had to go, I remember that I had to go to the Hamptons. So he had like 24 or 48, I can't remember that, but a very short time. I said, when I'm coming back from the Hamptons, we're gonna meet and seal the deal. And we did.
Okay, James, flattery will get him somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a couple shades redder now, I guess. No, this is fun. The important detail that Christian is too posh to put in sometimes, but it always is always one of my favorite details. Is as he was coming back from the Hamptons and we were banging out what the company that will also ultimately become Cambrian would look like. We did it at like 10 p.m. on a Sunday night at a Burger King because it was the only thing that I could find that was open.
True.
Near JFK. Anyway, so I think as I think about the conversation we've just had, but also the interest of many of the members of this Longevity Biotech Association that we've put together, Christian, I think you rightly put your finger on the biggest challenge for especially small companies in this space being around fundraising right now. And I wonder if, not taking it from the Cambrian perspective, where we've got our own challenges as we're going into the clinic and the scale that we've achieved, but a lot of the members are also smaller companies and are curious about what fundraising in this longevity space looks like for early stage companies, right? I think having your perspective as a venture investor, but also as a family office, and kind of like how to be playing that game right now could be really interesting for a lot of the folks.
But aside of that, it's really a bad timing for fundraising, which is so practically what I said before, macro matters, like sort of framework. The good thing is for longevity companies now is that within the very, very challenging field of biotech fundraising, I think longevity sort of stands out at the moment. Again, standing out from a very low level, but like because it's a very emotionally loaded topic, obviously. And so if you're small enough so that your fundraising amount is not 500 billion, 100 billion, whatever, if you're small enough, you will find with enough persistence, banging on enough doors, you will find smaller checks here and there, because it's like there are enough people, investors for their family offices, like especially people who have their own money, who see it. They might not admit it, but do it because they want to solve aging for themselves. So I think this is like, this sets longevity companies a tiny bit apart from other biotech companies, which might have not the very emotional connects. Meaning cancer had it some decades ago, but people got so disappointed with the incremental change that now if you tell a family office of cancer, they're like, okay, last 30 years I invested in so many companies and I didn't really make progress. So cancer had that once, like where a lot of people said, oh, I'm going to invest in cancer because I might get it somewhere. Yeah, but longevity is that new thing. So this is what you can capitalize on. But otherwise, it's banging a lot of doors. Yeah, I mean, even in good times, my famous sentence: fundraising is a statistical exercise. Yeah. So if you need more money, you need more meetings, you need more contacts, whatever. It is a hustling.
Cool. I'm trying to think of other stuff that we didn't touch on. But I think I have one point that I actually was going to bring up before Nir shoved me onto the stage that I did want to ask you about, or I did want to bring up as a point of discussion, because I think it's an interesting point of kind of disagreement between the two of us. So the first meeting that we did for these LBA roundtables was actually a debate between Nir and David Sinclair about whether aging should be called a disease. And I think it was really interesting discussion. And the side that I sit on there is kind of perfectly in the middle, that it doesn't matter at all. And I wanted to make an interesting case to you, because this is kind of a good forum to do it, of why. This is my view, but I want to get your reaction of why I don't think it matters, and why I think it's important to point out that it doesn't matter. And which I'll do really quickly because we don't have infinite time. But the idea here is that if we say, oh, this whole field is gated behind this idea that we're not calling aging a disease, it's intuitively so attractive, but practically it makes people think, oh God, governments are going to have to change how they work in order to make this field happen. And part of my optimism for the field, like Nir was talking about with the TAME trial and these other things, is that if you have a drug that can prevent multiple diseases, we already have a regulatory pathway for that. And therefore we can just build a business in this without requiring government or regulatory change. And I think that's actually a point of optimism for the field that gets lost by saying, oh God, the big barrier is that aging is a disease. So I wanted to put that forward here.
If you put it like that way, as you know, I 100% agree. Like we have already, as what I said before, there are already ways to do it. You can a little bit work around, whatever. Why I'm always using that sentence is because I also believe that even if it's too simplified, because then you can say it's not one disease, 9 hormones heavy, and now it's 12 or whatever, but it's raising awareness that you can do something. That is sort of my association with why I'm using it with disease means it can be changed. And I always use the example of the plague where people said it's a God-given punishment. And there were people who said all the time, we should change the word. It's not a punishment. It's maybe the hygiene. It's maybe the rats. And in the early days, they were burned because this was against God. And then somewhere we realized it is the hygiene and the rats. So, but it's more like, for me, it's more poking and making people aware that we can do something. But I do also agree, like it doesn't mean that we need necessarily government change. I think it would make it easier. But you can perfectly live around. And by the way, I joked, I think this thing was not on recording, but Ozempic is a good thing, meaning it has many benefits, like hopefully we will prove from metformin, but like people take it now en masse, and meaning maybe, I love Novo Nordisk because they're taking it very far, like what you can do in off-label marketing. I like it, because I think we should permanently push boundaries. That I think is generally what humans should do,
I think we all agree that aging is the mother of diseases. Okay, but with the FDA, we found out that the clinical trial is very clear. We're going to prevent age-related diseases. We'll call it aging. The FDA will call it age-related disease. Who cares? Eventually, I'm saying not yet. And there are, by the way, many other reasons. Mainly is that the elderly people don't want to be called sick. So there's a lot of.
That is one of the marketing issues, which is obviously not the intention, but I agree.
So before, is there anybody else that want to reveal his face and ask something? If not, James, pretend, because you said 2 things. You had problem with you had conversation on 2 things. So what is the other thing that you wanted to bring?
If other people wanted to jump in, I'm happy to
anybody wants to jump in? Oh, so go ahead.
Okay, I'll turn my video back on then. So the other question that I had is, again, more of like an investor question that is something that's fascinated me. And I'd love to, it's not actually something that we've talked about in our private conversations that much, which is about what I'm going to call moonshots versus innovations in this longevity space. So a lot of the recent breakthroughs from an academic perspective have these really profound effects on slowing aging. And some of them involve really, let's call it heavy interventions right? Gene therapies and stem cell, like modifying stem cells and these sorts of things. And so I'm curious from your investor perspective, the value of these early stage but really exciting breakthroughs that are probably years away from human clinical trials versus more of like the incremental innovations, one of these like the metformin or Ozempic type equivalents, something that fits the version that we think of now as a drug that people could take every day and may be able to slow or prevent some of the diseases of aging. How do you think about those two categories from an investor perspective? I call them innovations and moonshots, but I'm curious how you think of them.
Complicated answer, because there's always what I would like to do more, and then where's the limitation as an investor? Yeah. So I think it's like, it's not binary. You can't say this is either A or B. It's like a scale. Yeah. And then you have the very moonshotty stuff, and you have the very like near-term pragmatic stuff. Meaning, obviously, and by the way, and there, what I said before, the sort of macroeconomic framework is very important, because in times like today, it's very hard to raise money for moonshots, practically impossible. Yeah. So you need to show near-term milestones, near-term inflection points. Yeah. But like 3 years ago, and if people sort of raised a lot of money and had a moonshot idea, they still finance that. There will be times again. So there are times where you can do moonshot, finance them. And if you're sitting on them with money, but like, and there are times when you can't. Like, definitely we're in a time where you can't finance moonshots, not in sort of for-profit ways. Yeah. Because it's hard enough for near-term things. Yeah. Unfortunately. So, and as an investor, even if it's two good parts of my own capital, yeah, you are a little bit, because then opportunity costs kick in. Yes, could I finance moonshots more? Yes, but then I'm like, Jesus, I can make so much money with simpler stuff at the moment, because valuations went so down. So practically, capital is always a scarcity. I have never met a single person. So it's one of the most important things I ever learned. When I was 22, I met a person who had like a 20 billion fortune, and I was this young aspiring entrepreneur with my first company, and I was like, oh my God, if I'm ever as rich as you are, I can do all the stuff I want to invest in and build. And this guy looked at me after the dinner and said, I mean it as a compliment, but you are one of these persons who's always is missing the next 10 million or whatever, next 10% for his next year, because you want to do more and bigger and da, da, da. So, but anyway, but fundraising is always a problem. At the moment, moonshots are really hard. Yeah, but then you can scale it a bit, like we are doing with Cambria, and you try to show some near-term milestones, and at the same time get resources free to invest in moonshots. And then some people step in, like Alto Labs, like where it's a little bit different. They have more the funding for moonshots. So and that's also the great thing. Like our let's say industry, or our community of, let's call it longevity or aging or anti-aging, is not just biotech companies. It's a broader thing, scientists, whatever. And then, yeah, sometimes you can do things easier on a university and then morph it into a company, whatever. So it's a sliding scale. That's a sugar rush.
But by the way, I don't like moonshot because, okay, we've been in the moon, so what? you know, I don't feel
like, yeah.
Okay, Fiona, why don't you introduce yourself and your company, and please.
Thank you, Nir. Christian, thank you. So inspiring. So I am actually, to the topic of funding, I have started a first-time small venture fund to invest into longevity. I put up my own $3 million as a third of this fund. And it's been a struggle raising it. Partly it's because it's a first-time fund, no track record, but I talked to a lot of LPs. I think I'm a credible person. And the insight I get is, well, I'm focusing on real estate. I don't understand this, you know. So I go to these longevity conferences, so much excitement, there's so much science, and we did some, you know, detailed collateral, you know, here's 20 years of Nobel Prizes. These are the hallmarks. These are all the companies, and they're bringing the science to market. This is happening, you know, there is a, you know, this flex point, this market's going to take off, and it's very hard to get to these limited partners and get them excited. And so the question is, how do we as an industry get out there beyond just talking to each other to the people who are already sold on this, can we bring it to the mainstream? What's the best way to get this huge investor community worldwide excited and knowledgeable about this?
A very good question, because I'm thinking about it a lot and I have not an answer, but I could give you a direction, but it's really maybe even the core of it, what you said, or the most important question, because we funds like companies, and the more funding we have, the better as a whole ecosystem we're going to move forward, because again, biotech is inherently linked to funding. So what we can do, again, and that's, by the way, also, James, why because we live in a world where headlines are short and catchy. We all know that. And sometimes meaning I'm a semi-scientist, I would say, I never finished, but like you're a scientist, like I know that it's sometimes sort of hard to simplify too much, but like what I want to say is that some very smart person years ago told me, which really stuck in my head, was he doesn't understand why he's a billionaire himself, why billionaires do charity at all, which is a harsh thing. But then he said, because the only thing they should do is biotech, because they will make more money if they do it professionally. But at the same time, they're gonna change the lives of more people in the world than with any other thing they could do. Like, I don't know, he was a little bit mocking of some charity stuff, like he was especially mocking Warren Buffett, but his point was very, very good. It was like, if we all would use that money, and because that is at the end, is what I'm always saying, like if we break it down, what really every single human being wants to be, want to be happy and healthy. Yeah, and once you're happy and healthy, you want to live for long, forever, whatever. But like so what I want to say is like that stuck in my head. I was like, that is very smart. So I'm actually trying to tell some friends of mine, by the way, that's why the Middle East does it really well, because there are people who have a lot, if not unlimited resources, to tell them you really do good. And if you do it professionally, you're going to make a ton of more money. So it's not charity, but it's the best charity at the same time, because you're going to touch the life. And if you invest in aging, you're going to touch the life of every single person on this planet with your success. Yeah. So, and I do think that this, from my point of view, very obvious thing has not transpired to people who have money. I'm always wondering how many people have money, complain to me about the ailments in their age. And I was like, just take some of your money instead of whatever and put it in biotech. Yeah. And I think this is the thing that actually as a whole association, we should push more. Yeah. Invest to make money, but especially help yourself and the people you love, so to say, like something like that. But I'm always sitting there and like, why don't people do more? They do so many funny, stupid stuff. Like, yeah, biotech should be the #1 investment topic of everybody for a personal reason, and you can make money. It's not, again, if you make it well, we're going to make money.
Yeah, how to elevate our elevator speech, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's I'm sad to say, but our time is up, and it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful, first of all, to get to hear you as a person. I have to say that I saved one paragraph of the poem to last. I didn't know if it's going to fit, and now that it fits, I'm going to tell you. It says, he's a man of integrity and strong moral code. His values and principles are something to behold. He's a leader in the industry, a role model for many. His success is testament to his hard work and plenty. So thank you. It was nice to see your spiritual side, and it is so important for us. Your leadership is so important for us. By the way, you also look younger than your age. I didn't
Good.
didn't think you're that
Very
old.
happy about
And we'll be in touch. It was really terrific, and thank you everybody for listening. This recording will be available on our site very soon. So thank you
very much all for joining, and hopefully see you in person soon somewhere in the world.
Terrific. Amen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.